Oh. This bag, really cool. I only got it yesterday, but really liking it. So guys, like in the thumbnail, it's not a lie, it's not clickbait. I really am gonna have James Smart answer some of your questions in this video. It's gonna come towards the end of the video, so if you want to skip my answers to your questions, because you did direct some questions to me, surprisingly, considering James was on offer, you can do so by forwarding to this time down below. And that's when my sort of interview with James begins. So for those of you new here, every week I post on my Facebook page, EDC for the EDG, asking whether or not there are any EDC related questions. You can then post on that post and I will answer your questions in the video as well as mention you. And you may win some awesome prizes just for asking a question. Like last week, we gave away one of these awesome Urban Warrior UC masks, not one like this, because this is brand new. If you want the camo, I think it is available from Urban Warrior right now. Those of you who don't know, this is a mask and a buff and a scarf and a beanie and a Saharian, and it's like a whole lot of things. Check out this video, it'll show you exactly what this mask can do. So on to your questions. So question number one is from Rudy de Klerk, and it's Haran, best flipper knife if you want to carry one knife with you all the time. There are so many reviews and knives on the market. It's also confusing about steel, blade angle. I just want to know what I'm buying. That's a really difficult question to answer simply because I have 4 or 5 knives that I really love, and I try not to switch between carrying them, but I do just because I like them so much. So the knife I'm currently carrying most often is the Civivi Brigand. I really like the blade shape. This is D2 blade steel. Do you know what? For most people in reality, they're not going to be too fussed about blade steel unless it's like really poor blade steel. There are different kinds of blade steels, STTV being like premium. You're going to find that on expensive knives like this Benchmade Griptilian, and my camera eventually decides to focus like this Benchmade Griptilian. So the older blades, well not the older blades, the less expensive blades like the original Honey Badger, all these blades have been customized by the guys at Ultimate Edges, have CR13 MOV, so that's, you know, it's not the best blade still, but I can tell you I did carry this blade for quite a while and it was fine. Like most of us, most EDCers, we're not going to need the world's best blade steel. So I would say if you are a new first time knife EDCer, folding knife EDCer, go for something not expensive. You might not enjoy carrying a folding knife. You might want to go for something like a multi-tool afterwards, and then you spend a few $1,000s on a knife. Like this guy, when I bought it all those years ago, was like $400. This knife here from Civivi, which is my current EDC, this is about 1,500 Rand, and then the Benchmade Griptilian, which was my EDC for a while, was about 2,500 Rand. So blade design, I'm quite a big fan of this blade design. It's called Warncliffe, or I do quite like a Tanto blade style, but I've never owned one. I'm just really in love with the look of it. Again, I would say buy an expensive knife, buy a less expensive knife with a blade design that you like. Try it out, and if it works, great. Then you might want to level up if you find yourself using that knife often. If not, stick with it, or maybe you don't like it, and that way you're not wasting too much of your money. It's a very hard question to answer because I don't know what your budget is, right? If your budget is 5,000 Rand, you can get some great knives, but if your budget is 250 Rand, then choice of steel isn't really going to be an option for you. So the better the blade steel, sometimes the better the knife. Some knives have just unusable blade shapes, so that is something to consider. Watch some of my knife reviews and you know, watch more knife reviews and see if it's something that you want to stick with and that you want to invest your cash in. I know it's a crappy answer, but it's the best one without actually delving deep into your personality and what your budget is. I can't give you a great answer. Okay, next question is from CJ DeToy. What are your thoughts on Olight weapon lights? So this is my current EDC flashlight, the Olight PL Pro. Love this light. High lumen, high candela, rechargeable, magnetically rechargeable. Has 2 modes, low and high, something like 1200 lumens, I can't remember exactly. And in the low mode is 300. Strobe as well if you press both buttons together. I like the button press, although I must be honest, I prefer the actual buttons or the toggle that you get on the Surefires, but I prefer this button to the PL Minis button, and I prefer the Surefires toggle to this button. In truth, and I'm going to hurt a lot of people's feelings here, if Olight was an American brand, it would be famous as F, right? The Americans love to support their own local brands like Surefire, and I commend them for it, okay? I'm not saying it in a bad way. It's a really good trait, right, to support your local brands, and everyone should do it. I just sometimes feel that because most of our media comes from the US, we mainly see US branded gear, and so more often than not we think it's the only good gear. Olights do pretty much what every other flashlight does for a fraction of the cost of every other flashlight, and as you can see by this flashlight, when it focuses, this thing isn't new, and it's taken a beating in its life, and it's never ever even so much as hinted at giving me any issues. I test tons of holsters, way more than I review, and I use this flashlight when I test them. So it's scraped up, it's dinged up, it's dropped, it gets squashed when people borrow it to make molds and things like that. I send them this flashlight, and it survived. I would love a Surefire. It's a Tactical Institute, I'm looking at you. I would really love a Surefire X300 to try out and just live with for a while. Surefire is a company, you know, my review isn't really going to affect them. They have pedigree. Okay, these people, they know what they are doing, and they're not going to put out a poor product. It's just, if you consider this flashlight costs, what is it, like 2,000 odd-ish rand, whereas a Surefire X300 that has less lumens and I think and less candela in this, and is not rechargeable, magnetically rechargeable like this is, costs something like 5,500 rand. So I'd love to know what that is. But my thoughts on Olight, for most of us, it's a really good, really functional weapons light as well as EDC flashlight. My EDC flashlight is the Olight Perrin, and I've had great joy with it. Watch my review of this flashlight, okay? Not many flashlights are going to survive what I did to this flashlight. So go and watch my review of this light. I'll either put it up here or link it down below. This is tactical flashlight survivability and lumens with EDC flashlight size if you want. So Olights, nothing wrong with them. I really like them. Not putting any other brand down, but I have had quite a bit of experience with Olight, and I'm very happy with what they produce. Next question is from Fadil Seiji. It's C-A-J-E-E. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Curious to know how much firearms you possess. Apart from that bad boy Glock 19, of course, I only own the Glock 19. And then Devin Kanemayer, Ryan, do you keep your firearm next to you when you sleep, under the mattress, on a side table? And how do you conceal appendix in a tucked shirt or formal clothes? Can I skip that last bit? Okay, so I did a full review of what I do with my firearm at night. It's linked up here. I carry it on my, or I put it on my nightstand in a last line of defense holster. I just want to add, maybe I didn't mention that in the video, that firearm is in a live state, right? It's with a round chambered and ready to go. The reason I keep it in a holster is because I want one level of security against myself. I don't want to, in the night when my alarm goes off and I'm tense and I'm groggy, to reach for a live firearm with my eyes half open, that kind of deal. I just want the holster there, so I know if once I remove the firearm from the holster, I am cognizantly taking a live tool out of the holster, and that should switch my brain on if it isn't already switched on. But go and watch the review, it'll answer the question 100%. The tucked shirt thing, right? Okay, let me take this off and show you. Just 1 second. Okay, so we are safe. So I'm not going to show this because it's such a struggle. I don't recommend it. It's not, yeah. It's just something that I find to be really difficult for me to do. But in order to tuck in your shirt, okay, first of all, you need clips like these. Not necessarily J clips, but clips that have a gap in there. You then put your holster on your belt, as you would normally, with your pants slightly open, and tuck your shirt or whatever you needed to in between there. Quentin Bronkhurst, when you're at home and you're not carrying, do you still have a spare mag in every room, or just one in the firearm? And what do you do with your firearm in the shower? So when my firearm isn't on my body, it's in one of two places. It's either in the safe with all the mags and everything, or it's in a specific place in the house that is outside of sight of everybody, except, and people wouldn't know where to find it except myself and my girlfriend. Those are the two places I keep my firearm if it's not on my body. I don't keep spare mags in any spare rooms. The spare mags I have, if they are loaded, so there'll only be two loaded mags, the one that's in my firearm and the one that is in the holster. Other than that, I don't keep spare mags laying around. All my other mags, if they have rounds in them, they're in the safe. If they don't have rounds in them, they're in my gear cupboard. That is what I do with my firearm when it's not on my body. Alexander Berger, have you heard any horror stories about the CZ PR7 like jamming when needed most? And what 9mm pistol would you advise a female to buy for a first firearm? I've not heard anything bad about the CZ PR7. I haven't heard anything bad about CZ for a very, very long time. Yeah, no. Like modern firearms, they got that formula down. You're not like CZ, H&K, Glock, SIG, Smith & Wesson, you know, the formula, they've got it pretty well down. They know how to make these things now. So jamming, other than normal jamming, be it poor round quality or user error, user fault, grip error, I haven't heard anything negative about the CZ PR7. What firearm for a woman to get? Yeah, it's so difficult. Like, I would say something like a subcompact, but like the new X series from Glock. What is it? The 43X or the 48X? I can't remember which one exactly. My girlfriend bought one and I'm not even sure which one it is. She's waiting for her papers. But they're nice because they have the Glock length grip, which is nice, but they're single stack, so they're thinner. So women get the capacity as well as the easier grip situation. Concealability isn't a problem for women because they've got more chest. Well, most of them. So their clothes tend to hang more loosely in front if they're carrying the pins position, but it does get very uncomfortable for them because of their body design. So have a look at one of those, but remember, it's never going to be super comfortable or as comfortable as not carrying a firearm. Vincent van Zyl, how long have you been going out with Michelle? Okay, Vincent, I have been going out, what's it now? I've been going out with Michelle for 51,048 hours. Exactly, actually. So then from Rudy Mertz, Ryan, maybe you could do a video where you point the whip light into the camera while inside the house. I don't know if the camera will show what you see with your eyes though, or maybe just explain what you see looking into a whip light in low light conditions while inside an environment with white walls. Corridor versus open plan room, I'm sure instructors will cover that. Do you cover a training topic in South Africa? I'm looking at getting a Streamlight TLR8 for my Glock 45. So I don't have much experience in Streamlight. I will put in a quick B-roll of what it's like to look into the Olight PL Pro pointed directly at you. So that's what it looks like, right? I tried to set up my camera to do what the eye would do, but at sort of, I would say 5 to 7 meter range, pointing a high-powered weapon like the PL Pro with that high luminance candela at someone is going to blind them. They're going to have like a whiteout, okay? So, and I want to allude this to, as well, to Richard Martin Bach, because he asked the question from a tactical point of view, in low to no light situations, using a weapon-mounted light versus a handheld tactical torch, which is best? Does the light source not become a potential target for the threat, i.e. they see exactly where you ask weapon light versus holding a handheld away from your body. That is actually after James, but I also want to add something to it. A high-powered weapon-mounted light, right, will take away your visual horizon. You should just see light, and especially if you're going from super dark to super bright, which is what's going to happen if you're an intruder. You see what just happened in the B-roll. It's very, very bright, and looking into it is blinding. And it won't just blind that person for a bit. They will have trouble regaining that horizon for about 10 to 15 seconds afterwards. Also, the idea of shooting and holding a flashlight away from your body, I've tried that. It's very difficult to point two things at the same time, especially when the firearm is something you have to point with, lining up things. It's really, really difficult, and I personally can't do it, which is why I like to go weapon mounted light. And then last question from someone called, I'm assuming this is Hamza Forbes, why BJJ? So I done Muay Thai for a good couple of years, and I got tired of being punched. I started doing it when I was like 18, and after a while you just get sick of being hit, to be honest with you. And I had done some research, and I saw that Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was something that was useful for people who were not as fit or weaker, or for women who don't have the physical stature. And I have asthma, right? So I always struggle with physical exercises. Like, I'm always the least fit guy in the group, but has to try twice as hard as everybody else. And so I was really interested by Gracie Jiu-Jitsu because it was a technical combat style. And I like that. I like using my brain. For example, if you come to my house and you go to the men's room, there's an iPad in there with chess on it. Like, you know, some people sit on the toilet and read their phones and go on WhatsApp and Facebook. I sit and I play chess. I know it's weird, I know it's gross, but yeah, I like to engage my brain. And so when I found this combat style that was not just physical, but also technical and tactical in its approach, I was really, really interested. And pretty much from the get-go, I was hooked. And yeah, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, amazing fighting style. Most unarmed fights will end up on the floor. And knowing Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, I can personally tell you, you will have a massive advantage over someone who doesn't know Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Guys, that's it from me. I'm going to switch over to James now. For those of you who don't know, James is a real deal guy. He has trained security forces here in South Africa. He's trained BOPI, the Brazilian Special Police. They're like the special task force of this country. He has trained people overseas in the Far East and the Middle East. He's a Gracie Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and I think it's Huron Gracie, either Huron or Hena, I'm not sure, or maybe both of them, I don't know. They are the sons of Horion, who is the son of Helio, the inventor. So proper, real answers that we can expect from him, and some of you did ask questions to him, so I'll pose them to him, and I hope you guys enjoy that segment of the video. Guys, if you want me to do more of this, please let me know. I'm going to post on my Facebook page every single week, like, ask your questions. And if I get enough, then I'll do this kind of thing. Mr. James
Mr. Ryan Henry.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, absolutely.
Are you good to go for the first question?
Good to go.
Okay, so this is Andre Jordan from Instagram. What is the difference between people from South Africa versus people from overseas when it comes to combat training, if there are any differences?
I think that the difference tends to be that, in my opinion, there's some South Africans that take self-defense very seriously, and therefore, you know, they invest a lot of time and effort in equipment and training and all that kind of thing. Then I think there's a lot of South Africans that almost try and accept that crime and self-defense is, you know, the violent crime is there, and therefore they sort of have maybe a little bit of a mindset of, well, there's nothing really that I can do about it, so why learn? I'll give you an example. I had a lady come into the academy a long time ago now, and she was from a newspaper. She was there to do an article on us, and she was there. We demonstrated a couple of techniques. She took some photos. And I said to her, would you like to come and do some classes? And she said, no. And I was like, okay, I just fine, I get that, but out of curiosity, why? And she said, I'd rather not know what's going to happen or what could happen. Almost like she just kind of didn't really want to be faced with the possibility of it. And I also stem back to a conversation that Rodney King and I had, where we were talking about, and he was saying he has academies or instructors all over the world doing this crazy monkey defense system. And he said his academy is in, like, as an example, his academy in Los Angeles has got thousands, hundreds, many more times the number of students in Los Angeles, in Beverly Hills, or, a nice place in Los Angeles, compared to his own academy, his very own academy in Johannesburg. And we both actually agreed on the conclusion that there's almost a mindset there that in a relatively safe area or environment that people are in, and a very first world environment, they end up with less things that they need to focus on. And one of those things is always self-defense. How do I look after myself? How do I protect myself? It's very low down in the priority list. Money and life and family and fitness all come above that. Whereas I think people that live in a very safe country, maybe Australia, New Zealand, some parts of the US, some parts of the UK, they've got all the rest of it sorted out. So then they focus on the self-defense bit. But actually, in honesty, they don't really need that much.
Yeah.
Whereas I think in South Africa, we have so little sorted out in our lives that the self-defense comes very low down the list.
I see what you're saying.
So, yeah, and it's frustrating in some ways, but I get it as well at the same time.
Yeah. Okay, next question is from Facebook, Vincent van Zyl. Do you have any dry fire training tips or drills to keep skills as sharp as possible during lockdown?
Yeah, I guess. So I don't know I think Kelly McCann actually did a series of videos on dry fire at the beginning of lockdown. I would say definitely check those out. He's got a huge amount of experience and knowledge and that kind of thing. For me, when it comes down to, I always have this philosophy of any weapon that you have, whether it's a pistol or a knife or whatever, it's an ornament, it's jewelry until it's actually out and in the fight. And you can be the best shot in the world. You can have the greatest trigger control. You can have really good front sight focus and all those kind of things that make people good shooters. But if you can't get the gun or the knife or whatever it might be, whatever weapon it is, if you can't get that into the fight, then there's no point in having it. So I think, from my point of view, what do I drill most in dry fire? My draw stroke. I drill my draw stroke of getting the gun clearing my garment without fail and getting my good solid grip and pushing that gun out and seeing that front sight. And I drill that more than anything else. And it's a well-known, phrase, if you like, saying that the first good hits in a gunfight tend to be the ones that will finish the gunfight, or the first person to get good hits. So it's not the first person to make a loud noise.
Yeah.
Right? Loud noises don't win gunfights. It's the first person to get good hits. But I think part of that getting good hits is being able to get the gun into the fight quickly and seamlessly. So, my tip would be drill that draw stroke, drill that picking up that front sight, and then obviously trigger squeeze and all those fundamentals, grip, trigger squeeze, stance, all those fundamentals that really need to be solid. But for me, that draw stroke.
Richard Martin Bach. What a name, right?
Well, that is a name.
That is a name. From a tactical point of view, in low light to no light situation, using a weapon-mounted light versus a handheld tactical flashlight, which is best? Does the light source not become a potential target for a threat, i.e. they can see exactly where you are if you are using a weapon-mounted light versus holding a handheld away from your body?
Not only is it a real solid name right there, but that's also a really complicated question that I think, and in many ways, I think that Richard is not going to necessarily like the answer. And I had a question from a student earlier today where also I couldn't give him a one answer. I think he needs to draw his own conclusions. What I mean by that is there are very solid arguments for a weapon-mounted light. Very, very solid arguments. Being able to have a two-handed grip, being able to control the gun in the same way that you would normally do, and therefore referring back to my previous comment about being able to get on-target hits, in the fight. That said, there are also arguments for having a non-weapon mounted light, because if you draw your firearm, if the only light that you have is the weapon mounted light, now there's a reasonable possibility that you're muzzle flashing, or let's say pointing a firearm at someone who does not warrant having a firearm pointed at them, and therefore there's legality issues with that. So in my opinion, the answer is to have a separate light and a weapon mounted light, right? Because then you've got the best of both worlds. You can do your searching and you're looking around with your off pistol light, and then you can, when you're deciding that you're coming on to the threat, then you can transition to your weapon mounted light. That said, the reality and the possibility of actually being able to make that transition, I think, is limited. So I can't give a clean answer there. I'll refer back to that in a second. The other part of his question was does the light draw fire towards you? Potentially, yes, it does. But if you've got a decent light on there, you should get some degree of night blindness and therefore inaccuracy from the guy, the threat. The other side of that is that I'm not a fan. I'm definitely not a fan of the kind of holding the light away from the body. I think your accuracy of being able to hold a light away from the body and shoot accurate at the same time is very, very limited. So I'm definitely not a fan of that. If I'm going to hold a light, a non-weapon mounted light, then it will be here.
Yeah.
And then, and then I'm shooting with one hand, but that light is going to be here so that it can track wherever my eyes are looking, then my light is going to look. And I think that's probably another advantage of having a weapon mounted light, is now that assuming that you point the gun where you're looking, then you're searching at the same time. So no clean answer. My answer would be go to the range and drill it, and train it and decide what is best for you. And then whatever you decide is best for you, do it until you can't get it wrong.
I think we actually had that discussion prior to me buying a weapon mounted light, and I spoke to you and you said the exact same thing. And I went to the range and I couldn't aim both at the same time. I couldn't aim a flashlight in my left hand while aiming a firearm in my right hand. I just didn't have the coordination. And I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, would you say that with regards to making yourself a target, having a weapon mounted light, if the light has enough candela and output and you're pointing it at someone or your threat, it should sufficiently disrupt their visual horizon where all they would see is white?
Yeah, there should be. And also bearing in mind that if you're taking shots, then the muzzle flash is also going to have an impact on their ability to be able to focus on you and pick up their front sight and, so on, effectively to be able to shoot accurately. So, yeah, I agree entirely. I think getting good, solid shots on target is the priority. And how do we do that? We do that with a weapon mounted light, in my opinion. I have a Ronnie, and I have two lights mounted on that Ronnie. As far as I'm concerned, if I can get a good, solid light in the direction of the threat, and then I can get good, solid hits on target, then you know what? I'm probably going to be doing very well in that gunfight situation. Go and try it. Go and try out different methods. Do your research.
Yeah.
Look at guys like Davis Boulding, see what he says. Travis Haley, see what he says. Take a few different views on it. Go and try out on the range if you can in low light, or dry fire if you need to. The other thing to take into account is most people, if I look in your room and my room, we have light colored walls. Now, if you're using a flashlight and you're not really controlling that flashlight very well, there's also a possibility you're giving yourself night blindness. So we also need to be, there used to be this philosophy of the more candle power, the more lumens you can have, the better. Well, actually, there's some debate about that now as well, because if you enter a room and all of a sudden now you're flashing on your own brightly colored walls, where you're busy giving yourself night blindness at the same time as well. Very complex subject.
What's your opinion of the following statement? Having a weapon-mounted light hugely advantageous. Having a handheld flashlight mandatory.
I would say have a weapon-mounted light mandatory and have a off weapon light highly recommended.
Corey Brand, Instagram. I ran question to James. What made him decide to go into the whole army instructing vibe? Literal translation.
Okay, so I teach. So actually, I didn't really choose necessarily to go into the teaching of the security and the police and law enforcement and all that kind of thing, as much as it just kind of happened. I was teaching jiu-jitsu. The training manager of a very large security company came to me and said, can you teach our guys, unarmed combat, if you like? I was like, well, yeah, sure. I don't really know much about their job, so let me find out about their job first. We put together the program. I started teaching. I love teaching. The truth is, I love teaching guys that really take seriously their staying alive, okay, and the threats against them. And I tend to find that guys that work in law enforcement or security or military, those kind of people, they understand the threat that is posed to them. Therefore, they take the training very seriously, and they never wimp out. They never, at any point in time, say, this is too much. I don't want to do this, whatever. They suck it up, they get on and they do it, and they understand the value of doing it. I do find a little bit sometimes with people in a normal everyday environment that a lot of, I'm going to say guys, a lot of guys think they can fight and think they can throw a punch, but they actually can't. They think they can fight, but they couldn't fight their way out of a brown paper bag. And therefore, when it comes to actually really stress inoculating them and training hard and training the way they should do for a really serious situation, they're not prepared for it. They're not mentally prepared for it. And when it comes to it really getting hard, they decide that they kind of don't like it any longer. And I personally, I find it a little bit, I guess I find it frustrating. That's the truth of it. If you turn up to my academy or you turn up to a training session with me and you give me 1000% and you never turn around at any point in time and say, I can't, then I will give you all of the knowledge and all of the instruction that I possibly can. But the minute you turn around and say, I don't want to do this, it's too hard, that's when I get it. A fight is going to be hard. A criminal environment situation, attack, it's going to be hard. It's going to be horrible. It's going to suck. So better to do that outside of that situation and experience close to it for real, not for real, but experience close to it, than end up in that situation all of a sudden have this horrible surprise that it's much worse than you thought it was going to be and that you ever trained for it to be.
So this is obviously a person, but I don't know who they are, but their Instagram tag is Everest_original. Question for James. Which holster do you carry and why?
Okay, so I've got two firearms, a Glock 26 and a Glock 19. For the 26, I carry a Raven holster. Inside waistband, appendix carry. On my 19, I have two holsters. I have one holster that was given to me by a very, very cool guy who runs a YouTube channel, and he sponsored me this holster, Bravo Concealment, right? I think it was. Yeah. And the funny thing is, here's some truth for you, Ryan. At the time, I'd already bought an Incog holster, and I loved it, but I was having some relationship problems with it. And then I think we tried out the Bravo Concealment, and I was like, man, this holster's so good. It's so slimline. It's so nice. It's so amazing. And here's the truth. I use my Incog.
Really?
I've gone back to my Incog. It just fits me better, and it feels more, to me, on a personal basis, it just feels more secure. It feels like a little bit more of a solid holster. I'm more confident when I'm reholstering or I'm holstering gun, and I'm more confident on the draw stroke. It just feels better to me. And I think, a very good friend of mine said, especially appendix carry, you're going to go through a lot of holsters until you find the right holster that fits you nicely in appendix carry, because it is awkward. And I've got to say that I'm very fortunate in that I found the Incog holster. I thought it was great. I tried the Bravo Concealment. I do think it's great, and sometimes I do still put the holster on. If I want to really, if I don't want to wear too many overgarments because it does conceal better than the incog. It definitely conceals better the incog. But I do end up back on the incog a lot of the time. It's a really good holster.
And then this is either John007 or John007, also Instagram. What are your top 3 EDC tools, those that you would sacrifice all others to have with you?
My Leatherman.
Which Leatherman have you got?
I've got the Mutt,
Yeah.
right?
With a gun
That's my
cleaning
number
thing
one, right
on
there.
it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so cool.
And
I've never used any of the gun cleaning stuff.
And it's got like a hammer on the back or something like that, something strange like that.
It has. Yeah, it has. And that hammer bit. So the gun cleaning thing, I didn't buy it for that, but I did buy it because if you're going to carry something for EDC in an ideal world, the less you can carry, the better. Therefore, the more multiple situations that one item can fulfill, the better off you're going to be. So I kind of bought them up because it actually is bigger. Some people are like, yo, it's big and it's heavy. And I was like, yeah, it is. It is big and it is heavy, and I can feel it there for sure. I've used it 1,000 times for cutting and all that kind of thing for the pliers. But also, it's a really good impact weapon. It's a really good impact weapon. It carries enough weight, and it's longer than my hand. The little hammer thing sticks out the bottom there. And if I pull that out and I hit you with it, you are going to be in some degree of difficulty. So for me, I've got a really good multi-tool with an impact weapon in one time right there. So that's probably my primary or my kind of never walk out the house without it. If I'm not carrying my firearm, I most likely carry a fixed blade. So if I was going to put all 3 together, I would say my Leatherman, my fixed blade, and my firearm, and my IFAK. But if I had to go down to 2, it would be my Leatherman and my IFAK.
Vincent van Zyl, I think this is the second question. Any drills you would suggest for first time back at the range after a long time that you can use to get back on your fundamentals? So this would be drills for physically at the shooting range, pulling the trigger and going bang, the drills.
Well, so you just said it right there. Okay. Pulling the trigger and going bang. I would go back to, and what is, I think it's Kenny McCann that said this, what is an expert or something, someone who can never fail at the basics. So my opinion would be, and for me also, when I go back to the range is open, I go back, I'm going to stand there, I'm going to load a few magazines, and I'm going to draw my firearm, and I'm going to just push it out. I'm going to take a shot. I'm going to reholster it. I'm going to draw my firearm. I'm going to push it out, and I'm going to focus on all the little details of all the fundamentals, just to try and really grind that back in. And then once I've done a few, let's say 50 rounds, then I'll go for mag changes. So I'll put 5 rounds in. I'll do a draw stroke. I'll take a few rounds, do mag change. But the fundamentals of being able to get that gun out, referring back to my dry firing, being able to get the gun out, being able to get shots on target. For me, those fundamentals, basics, that's going to be my first training session back. I'm not a fan of doing all sorts of funky stuff. I'm not a fan. I don't get enough time on the range to be able to train all of the, rolling and all the funky stuff. I think if you have a good foundation and a good base, you can do other stuff if you really need to.
Yeah.
So yeah, work the fundamentals, work the trigger control, work your sight alignment, sight picture, your draw stroke.
Quinton Broncos.
Bronco is a cool name as well, right? Quinton Bronco.
No, Quinton. Actually, Gwinton.
Quinton Bronco.
Yeah. That's it. We've got some legendary names here.
Yeah, I know, right?
When you're at home and not carrying, do you still have a spare mag in every room, or just one with a firearm? What do you do with your firearm when you're in the shower, for instance? So I think in a nutshell, the question is, where do you keep your firearm when you physically can't keep it on you? And do you have spare mags?
No, my magazines are in the safe.
Okay, so if you're at home, where would your firearm be in the safe if it's not on you?
Yeah, because if I'm sitting in this room right now, and if my firearm is not on me, then where is it? Where is it? I'm not in control of it. If it's in another room, I'm not in control of it. And my philosophy is that if I've got magazines in another room and someone breaks into the house, I'm giving them ammo.
Yeah.
And so that's great. I've got my firearm on me, but I've just given them a couple of, a couple of mags of ammo whilst I'm unaware that they're even in my house.
Cool. So this is going to be the last question from Alexander Berger. Have you heard any horror stories about the CZ PO7, like jamming when needed most? And what 9mm pistol would you advise a female to buy for a very first EDC firearm?
Wait, I saw that question was on Facebook, and that was for you, not me.
No, remember I said I'm going to ask you questions as well. That are for me, because I think there's
but that question was for you. I'm not saying anything about PO7s or CZs or anything.
That is expert dodging right there.
That's your gambit. That is not mine. I've never heard anything. So listen, I've never heard anything about a CZ jamming. I've never heard that. I don't think, I've got to be honest. I don't think many guns these days jam without a malfunction, most likely from the user, right? So a loose grip or whatever, we know guns jam because of that. But I think that, whether you've got a Smith & Wesson or a Heckler or a CZ or a Glock or whatever, or a SIG or whatever, I don't think guns jam that much anymore. They're too good. The engineering is too good.
I think
I'm not going to say anything about CZs. Yeah. You can't goad me into that.
I think most modern quality firearms, they've got the formula down now. They kind of know how to do it. The days of guessing games and things like that are done when it comes to handguns. They can pretty much produce a product that's going to fire more than 99% of the time, unless there are outside influences causing a malfunction. And then, so the last question.
So, Glock has been, I was going to say, Glock has been producing guns for God knows how long that don't malfunction. So if any other company has not managed to catch up with that and has not managed to replicate that degree of engineering, then I don't think they're a quality gun. TZ are quality guns. The other part of that question was about a woman, right? What
9mm pistol would you advise for a female to buy for a very first EDC firearm?
Interesting question. So I'm a fan of the Glock 26, of the Smith & Wesson Shield. I think for a woman to conceal a gun easily, it needs to be a subcompact. For a lot of women, that said, I know, women that can conceal a Glock 19. I think the only downside of a subcompact is the ability to control the gun. I've got a friend who she struggled with her 26 to begin with just because of not having a strong enough grip, because but you can buy grip extenders and all of that kind of thing now. So I would say either a single stack or a double stack Glock subcompact, or a Smith & Wesson Shield, or subcompact 9mm, I think is going to be a good first weapon. But what I would do is suggest that lady first become comfortable with a compact like a 19, get comfortable with shooting, get comfortable with and some good foundation, and then pick up the 26 or the whatever it might be, the subcompact. I just think it's hard to just pick up that subcompact gun and run with it straight away.
And so, just a question from me on that question: what do you think of the new X series from Glock? I think it's the 43X that has the same. It's a single stack, but it's got the same grip as the
19. I think.
Yeah. I think Michelle, if I remember correctly, Michelle's actually bought one of those. So she's just waiting for licensing and those things. Yeah.
Legendary. Okay, fantastic.
And she got the one with the rail on. I think the early ones didn't have a rail underneath, so you couldn't put a weapon on the light. She's got one of the ones with a rail on. So it's super cool.
What I really like most about your comment just then is that you don't even know. You're like, I think she's bought this, but I'm not really sure. And it might be. So the fantastic thing is Michelle's made her own decisions independently of you and hasn't even told you what's coming. That's fantastic. I love it.
But I mean, you know Michelle, like how she operates. She's like, take me there and I'll know what I want by the time I leave.
In my opinion, it makes sense. A 19 grip is a really good grip, especially the Gen 5 and the one without the finger grooves on the front and that kind of thing. So I think that the 19 grip on a subcompact gun, so it's slightly shorter because women's pelvises tend to be a little bit short, different dimensions to guys. So I think it's probably a really good gun to carry. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good position. A single stack also, I think, is a really good option because of the concealability. I did consider briefly getting rid of my 26 and getting a single stack Glock. I'm not going to because I love my 26. But yeah, it was a consideration there for sure.
Are you doing any courses that we should know about?
Yeah, obviously lockdown has caused a lot of problems. A lot of the training has had to stop. So I'm still doing some training for some of the security companies, or we're getting back to that now. Now we're in lockdown level, whatever one, lockdown level 3. But we don't have any courses scheduled right now. We did have some courses scheduled, but basically everything went on hold until until we can see when we can start back in training, because a lot of the stuff that we do, a lot of the stuff that I'm doing in security companies is with distance right now. So we're working on weapon acquisition and transitions and managing the distance, all that kind of stuff. But that's all we can work on. We can't get into the close contact stuff. Yeah. So yeah, no courses booked right now, but keep an eye on our website, streetsmart-group.com. And we'll be putting as soon as we get out of lockdown, we'll be putting a calendar of courses that, coming out for later this year.